If you ever looked at the condition of retail book sales, you would think that books are on the decline, and you would be 100% incorrect about that. In fact, book sales are higher now than they ever have been. It's just unfortunate that it's not your local neighborhood bookseller anymore. It's not even Barnes and Noble. In fact, the last time I went into Barnes and Noble, it looked more like a toy store than it did a bookstore. Whether it's ebooks or print books, they're more popular than ever, and surprisingly, print books are still more popular than ebooks. They both seem to be growing in popularity, but print books are on the rise. It has something to do with Generation Z that just loves to consume physical books, which is good for people who want to self-publish their own thing, or if they want to be a book designer for people that want to self-publish their own thing. Coinciding with all of that, a lot of people have asked me to do a tutorial in Affinity Publisher on how to build books. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dave Connery. I'm an artist and designer based in Southern California, and some of you probably don't know this, but I have actually built my own books a few different times. And I don't mean just like the journals that I've shown you before, but actual books. I wrote the book, I built the book, I published it with Amazon's CreateSpace, which is now called KDP, but still don't have any of the hard copies on me in this exact moment. They're all in the house, and I'm not getting up to show you, but if you wanted to go check them out, there's a link in the description. An interesting thing about designing books, whether it's in Affinity Publisher or Adobe InDesign, is that they are relatively easy, at least in concept. Where they get difficult, or rather tedious and time-consuming, is in the details, the minutia, the, hey, I want to tweak these little things to make it just look just this way, not just so. But if you look at your average book, whether it's a novel or a memoir like this one, or even a nonfiction, business-oriented book, or something that's self-help or whatever, the foundational elements of any of those books don't really change that much. You have an introduction sometimes, you may have a table of contents occasionally, you have chapter pages, you have content pages that flow after the chapter pages, and then you may have some incidental things like maybe bibliographies or glossaries. Once you dig into it, most of the pages pretty much look the same except for those photo ones, but most of the pages look pretty much the same. Where the things get detailed and you get into that minutia is in the text styles. I've done a video about text styles in the past, whether it's in InDesign or an Affinity Publisher. I'll put links to those in the description. The thing about text styles, especially when it comes to a book, is that it's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Now, you can look at other books as examples. In fact, this book has quite a bit of different text styles throughout the whole thing. There's like these moments where it's got like this prose, which is like poetry almost, or really it's just like the, details and things like that. There's some bold from when it's like question and answer. There's also these faded sections, which I don't really understand that because it's hard to read for old men like me. There's all these different style choices that they've made within the book. That's cool if that's the kind of book you want to make, but as a designer, it's going to be more complicated. Today, we're not talking about textiles. We're actually just going to be building the framework. What you fill it with is completely up to you. But once you get these basic book fundamentals down, you'll be able to design books all the time. And you'll just kill yourself on the textile treatments because that's really where all the work comes in. Now, when it comes to book publishing, there are a lot of traditional things that still get done depending on the publisher, but there's also a lot of trends moving away from those traditions. For instance, if you look at this spread right here, you'll notice that number one, the chapter page starts on this side, that's a little untraditional. Usually, most chapter pages will start on this page, and even if the text from the previous chapter ended here, they would usually leave this page blank and just start the chapter here. One thing that they have carried over from tradition is that on the chapter page, there is no page number on here. The page numbers or the folios exist up here at the top for this book. You can put them wherever you want, but they like them up here probably because there's a lot of footnotes happening, and those footnotes are ending at the bottom of the page usually. So you can do that if you want. Their folios are up here at the top, but their first chapter page doesn't have any page numbers, and that's very classic book design. Do you have to do it that way? No, you can do whatever you want. In fact, when I look at this book, even though it does follow some traditions, a lot of the things that are happening in this book break all kinds of book publishing convention. There is no rules. It's your book. You can do what you want. Now, is it good to understand some of these fundamentals, some of these traditions, some of these book conventions? Sure, it absolutely is. But ultimately, what it comes down to is if you're publishing your own book for yourself, make yourself happy. Just make sure that it's readable to the people that you want it to be readable for. That really is your number one goal. This book does not have a table of contents, and maybe it doesn't need it. It is a memoir. Usually novels and memoirs don't really have that. But if you do want to put a table of contents in your book, well then I'm going to show you the things that you need to do in Affinity Publisher to make sure that you can have a table of contents put together. One last caveat before we jump in. I'm not talking about building a manuscript. Okay, you should already have your manuscript written. Do not create your manuscript in Affinity Publisher. That is a bad idea. It's just not set up for you to write and edit and do all the things you need to do first. Could you? Yeah. I don't recommend it though. Second caveat, we're not going to be talking about book covers today. If you want me to do more on book covers, I can, but I've talked about that before, but I don't think it's important today. We're really just talking about the interior structure. Okay, enough caveats. Let's caveat our way into the screen. What I've got here on the page is 100% artificial, made up strictly for the purposes of your viewing pleasure. I have no intention of doing a book called My Book is Awesome. Maybe I will in the future, but right now, this is just for play. We're just here to experiment with this. You can see what I've got here is essentially my title page, which would probably mimic my book, at least from some sort of aesthetic aspects. If this was my title and this is how I was going to write it, I'd probably carry this over from the cover, but you know, this is just the title page on the inside of the book, just like I've got here. In this book, this is the title page right here. But I'm getting ahead of myself because what I want to talk to you guys about is what I actually built here. As you can see, I've got the document set up as 5x8, which is kind of a traditional print size, at least here in America. It's set up in inches, obviously. Well, I originally set up 60 pages, but I took most of them away. I had a default master setup, and I have facing pages. If you're not sure what facing pages is, this page faces this one when you close the book. So that's facing pages. So when I look at this, this is my first page. It doesn't have a facing page. That page doesn't face a page as opposed to these other ones down here. This is a spread. This is not a spread because that is this page right there. So I have it set up as facing pages, horizontal, starts on the right, just like I showed you. Color format is gray because if I'm publishing this in, say, Amazon's KDP, and it's a novel or it's just a technical manual or memoir or something like that, I don't need color, so gray is gonna work, and it's also gonna be less expensive to publish in that within Amazon. I have my margins set at mostly 1/2 inch, except at the bottom, which is more like 5/8. And then no bleed because I'm not bleeding anything off the page. Now, one thing you'll notice is I have 4 master pages set up right now, and I could probably go deeper on these, but these are the 4 most essential pages, at least as far as what I'm concerned when I'm building something. I have a spread that's strictly blank. There's nothing on it because sometimes you may just want pages that are blank. They're just there for filler. Or what you want to do is you want to make a page blank and then add your own stuff on top of it, and that page doesn't necessarily need any other information from the master. My second master is essentially blank except for the folios up here at the top. This symbol right here, that number sign is not just a number sign. If I were to go up here, I'm going to delete that. If I go up here to text and I go to insert, fields, page number, it's going to drop that symbol in there, but it's not just a pound sign. If I just typed a pound sign, nothing would happen. But when I go and apply that to one of my pages, that's how we end up with a page number here. So this is essentially a blank page except for that, and again, this is in one of those circumstances where maybe I want to add some pages that don't necessarily have any other set content except for that page number. My third master is my chapter page. You can see it says chapter page there. And what I've got it set up here is these 2 text boxes, which are, well, basically these 2 pages are identical, both across the board, except I've got, as my folio, I've got my name, which is the author name, and then the book name, which is there. Okay, but this is a text box, this is a text box, this is a text box, this is a text box. This text box is specifically for me putting my chapter header. So if I was to put chapter 1, in my master, then that chapter 1 is going to be written on every single time I apply that master to the page. But I don't want the type already in there. I just want the text box so that when I go to that page and the real, in my pages, I can go here and I can type it in. And let's say let's click on this page here. And I'm going to right click over here. Sorry, I'm moving my mouse around a lot. Somebody complained about that. I don't care. Anyway, so I'm right clicking and I'm going to go apply master, and I'm going to apply master C, which is my chapter page. Okay. I'm going to click OK. And you can see that it's there, but if I type in there, chapter 0. And then if I reapply the blank master, that's still there because I made some adjustment to it, but I can just delete that. And as you can see, I have my filler text. This is all lorem ipsum, so it's, and it's large, by the way. It's much larger than I would normally put in a print book, but that's just the way it came in. And you can see that I have it flowing all throughout. You can see the little arrows. And if you don't know how to flow your text, is you have your pages, you have your text box, and you just go down here to this little arrow. So I unclick that link, right? So now all my text is not flowing. But if I click that, and then I click here, it automatically flows all through everything. Now that's not going to do that every time. If that was the first time I'd laid down any type in this box right here, just put it all in there, and then I just went and clicked that and clicked it over here. I already had these pages or these boxes already flowed together, but if I didn't already have these flow lines here, it would just flow to this box here, and then I would have to do it again and do it again and do it again. Now, there is a way to do this. I'm going to scroll all the way down here to this one, and I'm going to add a couple of pages. I'm going to add 2 after, okay? And if I go and this is my last one here, and as you can see, I've got my arrow here. If I hold down the option and click that, it will flow to it. Only if I do one thing in my master page, which this is a mistake I made before, but I fixed it. You can see here when I click on this one, oh, that's weird. Oh, not my master page. Excuse me. This is my interior page. If I click on this one, you can see I have these linked. And so anytime I click it in these other pages, it's going to flow it to the next spread. Now, there should be a way, and I don't know if this actually is a thing or it's something that Affinity Publisher hasn't implemented yet. I just haven't figured it out, and I probably need to do some research. But there should be a way that I should be able to just click that link there and just have it flow as long as it needs to. Like just by doing that thing, it would just automatically just populate as many pages as I needed. So it would just populate my entire book with pages just like that. I don't know if that's actually a thing. It might be a possible thing. I will have to look into it and get back to you on that. But what happened when I did this the first time is I didn't have these pages linked. I just had 2 separate text boxes. And so what would happen is I would do this, I would click be here, and I would click that dot, and what would happen is it would only populate the right page in the next spread. It wouldn't go right, left, right, left. It would just go right, 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 right. And I was like, why is it doing that? And the left page would do the same thing. It would go left, 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 left. And I was like, why is it doing that? And it all comes down to having this text box and this text box linked. Now I jumped ahead again, but this is my interior pages master page right here. Let me just do it. This one right here. Interior page. Again, my folio at the top, which I copied. Basically, I just copied my page number page, and I just right-clicked, and I said duplicate, and it created that one. And then I just added my text box, and then clicked them, and then now I have my pages. So when I go to my pages of my actual book, let me start here in chapter 1. I have my blank page, which is my first master. I have my second page, which is my chapter master, which is my master C. Then I have my interior pages here. And then I have a blank page here that has the folio at the top, which is my B master, which is pages number only, or page numbers only. and then back to my chapter page, and then more page flow. One thing is relatively traditional is that when you have a book, you have your title page, and then the next page after that is usually all of the publication information. Now, I didn't have anything to put in here because it's all pretty technical and I could have typed it out, but I just put publisher page as if I was going to input that later, get that information later. Because one of the things you're going to need, especially if you're going to publish with Amazon's KDP, is you're going to need an ISBN. And you can either go and purchase an ISBN, or if you're going to sell the book strictly on Amazon and nowhere else, they will provide you with an ISBN number for free. But you have to take that ISBN number. Where is it here? You have to take that ISBN number right there and put it on this publisher page for Amazon, because you need to have it somewhere in the book whenever you're publishing this type of thing. And so that way they can catalog it and it can go to Library of Congress and blah, blah, blah. As far as what to put on this publisher information page, that's kind of up to you. You may want to put a copyright information, and it kind of tells you when it was first published and what the different editions were, and websites and contact information, and like where to get the book or who published it, and all that stuff. Go look at any other book that you see, pick and choose what types of information you want to share, and then put it on that page. Again, tradition says it's usually on the left page right after the title. You do what you want. Some people have done it inside that cover right here. Some people have done it as a first blank page and then had like nothing here. So it's entirely up to you what you want to do with it. And then following that, just like it is on my page here, is the dedication. It's a dedication to, whoever loved one or somebody who inspired you. And on my layout, I go straight to a blank page and then chapter 1. Now, I could have started my chapter 1 on my left page, because that's something. Now, he started it on his right page because he included this other little kind of obscure piece of information here. I don't know what's going on here, but that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to fill the page with something. Start it on the right page. Now, that is traditional to start on the right, and maybe he just felt uncomfortable with this page being blank, and so he wanted to fill it with something. I don't have a problem with the page being blank, so I'm going to leave it blank and then just start my book as I go. As you can see, again, my folio at the bottom, no page number, and then you jump to the second page, and I have my content started. Now, you'll notice something. You'll see here, this is actually technically, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th page, but the page number says number 2, and I'll tell you why. If I go right over here to my pages, this little icon right here is my section manager. And I've got this book already broken up into 3 sections. I have my front matter. I have my chapter. It says section 2, but it's chapter 1. And then I've got section 3, which is chapter 2. And I would continue that throughout the entire book. And if I had anything like any of the back matter, like I said, the glossary, the acknowledgments, bibliography, note pages, anything like that, that would be at the very end. When I have this first section selected, which I have labeled as front matter, my section number, or rather my number style, is these small Roman style numerals. I could have had it as full-size Roman style numerals, or I could have regular numbers, or I could have A, B, C, D. I could have done any of these things. This number style is kind of traditional for any information that comes before the actual content. I don't have another book to show you, but if you were talking about a nonfiction book and there was like a forward section before the introduction, that forward section would usually be marked with these numbers. You wouldn't have page numbers on a table of contents. You wouldn't have page numbers on the publisher page, the dedication page, or any of that stuff. But they do usually have it noted as that type of page number. If you have an introduction, that is usually the first page of the book, even though chapter 1 follows the introduction. But again, it's your book. You do whatever you want. Now, if I go to my section 2, which is my chapter 1, which is here, actually no. So I have, this page right here is my section 1. Pages 1 to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I go here, which is actually page 5, section 2, pages 5 to 17. It restarts page numbers at 1. And then my number style is traditional 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's why when I go to here, it's page 2 and page 3 and so on. Now, if I get to section 3, which starts on page 18, which is right there, Now again, you can see it. It is actually page 18 of the book, but it's labeled as page 14 and 15 and 16 and so on all the way to 25. Now, the reason these sections matter is because at some point, if you are going to create a table of contents, you're going to want to have these sections. I've never built a table of contents in Adobe Publisher. I know that there are videos out there that show you how to do it. It should be relatively simple, but I understand that if you want to have it done, if you want to create one, you're going to need to have your sections done first. Table of contents should be one of the last things you do when you're processing your book. Now, on that note, let's talk about the order of things, because building a book can be a little bit confusing, especially if you've done it for the first time and you just don't know where to start. And you may want to feel like, oh, I dump all the text in there and just start jumping in with text styles and start, like designing everything. And I think that is actually the wrong way to go about it. I think what's most important is to, first off, get the basic page layout done. Then import your manuscript, and hopefully your manuscript is stripped down of all text styles. It may or may not be the case. It depends on where you imported it from. If you went and placed a bunch of text styles into your Word doc or whatever app you use to create it, those styles are probably going to get imported, and you're going to end up, have to change them or add to them. And maybe that works for you, and maybe it's something that will be beneficial, but you'll have to be doing some tweaking with your text styles, as opposed to starting with a kind of a clean slate of just having text there and then making the adaptations as you need to, and then creating your text styles as you go. There's no one right way to do that. For me, I like to have the clean slate style and then go in and make my adjustments later, because I want to see how the page is flowing before I even start tackling my text styles. If I was going to make any style adjustment to my text in the very beginning, the only thing I would do, especially when it comes to a novel or a memoir or something that has a lot of text like this, I would set my body copy size right out of the gate. Body copy size, your leading, your kerning, all the typographical basics, so that you at least know that you're working from a good solid base as far as the body is concerned. Again, you're probably going to find tweaks, and you're going to want to need to add pages or remove pages as things go along. But once you have that basic fundamental done, then the rest gets a little bit easier. A little bit. One other thing you're going to want to get really acquainted with is if you go in here to the text thing and you go to insert, you're going to want to get into these fields and where your breaks would go. Right here, this is important. Depending on what type of break you need, whether it's a line break, breaking a hard return, or a column break, or frame break, or a page break, that's actually one that you might end up using a lot, especially if you don't really have a separation. Like your chapter 2 runs right up against the body copy of the end of chapter 1. You're going to want to add a page break right there. If you have columns in your book for whatever reason, and you need to break something off into another column, like you have multiple columns on one page and you want to make sure, okay, well, something needs to break here and go to the next one because it lines up weird, well, then you're going to need to insert a column break. So look at your inserts, your fields, your symbols, all these other things. Look at all these and see how you can use these to your advantage when you're formatting the basics of your type. Last little thing on type. Make sure you understand your hierarchy. So you may have your title, and then maybe your subtitle, and your author, and your byline, and then your page number, and then you have your chapter title, and then maybe there's like a sub-chapter title information in there, and then you have your body copy, and then you have your first paragraph versus your second paragraph. You may have like the start of the paragraph has no indent, but your interior pages, like once you, well, of course I can't find anything like that. So you have your first paragraph, which has no indent, and then your second paragraph after that does have an indent. This is something I do on a regular basis, and you would do all of that within your text styles. You could have side, little, whatever this is, I don't even, like a little, almost like a subhead within the page, the chapter. You have little subheads. Or then you have your pull quote information here, which also has its own little tiny headline as well. So this book probably has a tremendous amount of text styles within it. I can't even imagine the work that this designer had to put into this book. I hope they got paid well. and they're not just some in-house guy that was just got paid whatever. But yeah, so it's really detailed. It's super detailed, especially if you start going into some of these other pages. All these different things, you have to make some sort of consideration. And as you're going about it, as you already flowed your text, and now you're working on your text styles, just start thinking about all the things that you want to add to it. Put the styles in there, even if you don't think you're going to use them very often. You may end up not using them at all, but at least you have them. And then if you do end up applying them to something, all you have to do is go and change that text style, and it will do everything globally throughout your whole document. Could that mess up your whole document? Then you have to go in like, oh my God, now I got to fix everything. Now I got to readjust my body copy. Now I got to readjust my headlines and put my chapters in different places. Yeah, that's book building. And that's why it is tedious and time consuming, but fully rewarding once you get the thing done. And that is pretty much it. That's the basics of book building or book page building in Affinity Publisher. You could go super deep dive onto this. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to do that. I give you enough information to help you get started, but really what this comes down to is you just getting in there and playing and having some experimentation. Now, if you guys have questions about anything that we've talked about, you get stuck in someplace, feel free to hit me up, and I will do my best to answer that question. You can just drop them in the comments below, or you can drop me a line, maybe, through the messenger. Like, find me on Instagram, DM me there at Dave Conry, or you can send me an email at dc@daveconry.com. Either way. Oh, also, if you want me to do more stuff around book cover design, we can talk about that as well. That's a whole other topic unto itself, and we can go super deep and wide on that. Shut up. Get your mind out of the gutter. It's a really broad topic, and I have my opinions about it, and then my opinions might not necessarily be the same as everybody else's, but we can talk about that if you want. Go down in the comments below, leave your thoughts, and we'll talk about them. While you're headed down there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hit that bell because you never want to miss any one of these beautiful videos that I'm putting out. Unless, of course, you're here for more book publishing stuff, and I'm just going to tell you, don't subscribe because I'm not going to be doing very much more of those, I promise. Magazines? Sure. Novels and memoirs and stuff like that? Probably not. Hey, before I go, remember that video where I talked about textures and how I made a texture pack, and then I showed you how I used the textures from the texture pack? Well, guess what? On my other channel, I did an entire video where I walked people through the entire process of me building that digital product from an idea all the way to putting it out to market, which is essentially my website. But I did the entire process, and if you want to check that out, that video is right there. Or if you just want to see what YouTube has planned for you, check out that video down there. And on that note, I'm out. Thank you very much for watching. I know you have plenty of opportunity to watch a whole bunch of other people, but you're here for me, and I appreciate you. Remember to be good today, be even better tomorrow, and I'll see you next time.